Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Allen. I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Minnesota Medical School, and it's really my privilege and honor to be representing the medical profession up here. I'm looking out and seeing much more senior members in the medical profession than I am. I'm only in my fourth year. People ask, before I came up here, Carrie asked me, do you want to be introduced as Dr. Allen? And I'm like, I'm not a doctor yet. Don't do that. So it really is a privilege to be up here representing my profession. I love it. So again, fourth year medical student, just to put it in perspective, 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of medical school, 3+ years of residency. And I'm enjoying it. I'm right on the cusp of trying to figure out where I'm going for residency, etc. But I can't wait for the day that I don't have a job. And I'll talk more about that later. A little background on myself. I was raised in a small town in southern Minnesota called La Center. It's down by Mankato. And I owe my life to the medical profession. Right after I was born, I had to have several blood transfusions. I almost died from a hereditary blood disease I got from my dad called spherocytosis. He got it from his mom. It's a genetic thing. And I had to have several blood transfusions, and then when I was 6, I had to have my spleen out, and since then I've been fine, but you can, if you're curious about how that works, you can talk to me later. So I wanted to join the medical profession ever since I found out God's gifting for me in the sciences in particular, and also in loving and serving people. In the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, God just plucked me out of the sinful and selfish life that I was living and called me to join the medical field for His purposes, even though I really didn't know what I was getting into. So through that, He opened the door for me to go to Wheaton College in Illinois, where I studied chemistry and learned a lot about theology and spirituality and grew so much. I love that school, and I'm so grateful that I was able to attend there. And eventually, He opened the door for me to come here to Duluth to attend medical school up here, and now somewhere in the middle there, I got married to my beautiful wife and have a 1-year-old son named James. So right now, like I said before, I'm trying to figure out where to serve in residency next. Obviously, our profession requires a lot of training. The 4 years, 3 years, even more if you're doing something like neurosurgery and you're going to be in school for like 10 years after medical school. It might seem excessive, but I'm certainly glad that my doctors have that much training. So it's a good thing. The training in medicine involves such an intricate and comprehensive view of how God created the body to work. And every time I am able to study the biochemical and physical processes that go on in a cell that God created in order to make that one cell work, so many things. And then that one cell working with other cells to make tissue, and then tissue working with other tissue to make organs, and then organs working with other organs to make an organism. It's so, so cool, and I am thrown into worship every single time that I look at the complexity of a human being. And I am so grateful that God created us as awesome as He did. But due to the fall, those same processes are what cause disease. If something goes wrong, suffering and death comes from it. And so much pain. And it's knowing how these processes work and what goes wrong in those diseases that will hopefully allow us to find a medicine to alleviate the disease, the pain or the suffering, or maybe even cure the disease, whatever it may be. Certainly this is different than what it looked like for Jesus to heal. I don't claim to have the capability of looking at someone and say, be healed, or spitting in the dirt, rubbing it on someone's eyes and being like, all right, you can see now. I can't do that. However, I am able to study the world and the world that God created and find these natural and man-made molecules to effectively achieve the same outcome. Jesus healed through the Spirit. Medicine heals through his creation. In many ways, the medical profession is damage control for the fall. That one sin so many years ago brought with it an immense amount of suffering that we get to see every day, that we have to see every day. And for many diseases, there is a cure. If you see a doctor for strep throat or pneumonia, they can give you a pill or a shot that can make it go away. But if you come to a doctor with cancer or diabetes, the answer isn't so easy. Medicine is so much more than just a problem and a cure. It's walking alongside patients during some of the most difficult times that they're ever going to experience. There's a book I read called The Healer's Calling. It's written by a Franciscan monk and internal medicine doctor at Georgetown University named Daniel Sulmacy. And it's an excellent book for healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, etc., to see how our faith integrates with our work and how inherently spiritual medicine is. And there was this quote that he had that emphasizes the importance of walking with patients through some of the very difficult times in their life and equating it to spirituality. Spirituality in general has more to do with process than with results. If one treats an HIV-infected heroin addict and you're in it for the results, you're going to wind up a bitter person very quickly. When someone's diabetes begins to eat away at their toes and you've dilated and bypassed their femoral arteries twice and the gangrene continues to progress, if you're in it for the results, you're going to be frustrated. As a patient's Alzheimer's disease progresses and you can't do a darn thing to stop it, if you're in it for the results, you'll soon begin to resent the fact that someone brought this patient in the first place. Healthcare, in the final analysis, is not about the results. Not that one can ignore the results or that one has no responsibility to try to cure when you can, but healthcare is primarily about relationships of knowledge, of trust, and of care. Healthcare is about being there with people in their finitude and doubt, in their pain and uncertainty, respecting each one and saying that one cares by showing by one's deeds that you really do care in all the ways that you can. Such caring does mean acting in a way that promotes the best results possible. But the results ultimately are really capital S, someone else's business. To be honest, our training doesn't really emphasize the humanity of medicine as much as it does the science. This is where I believe an understanding of the incarnation of Jesus and how God relates to his creation creates such a beautiful holistic view of medicine. I believe that medicine hits its stride when we recognize that there is so much more to a person than just organ systems. When I'm involved in treating someone's chronic illness, I become acutely aware that I am treating a person who is here for more than just pain relief. Healing needs to take place on so many deeper levels. And I have 5 minutes, right? So I have a story to go along with that. On my first rotation in medical school, I was doing OBGYN, delivering babies, and loving it. I love delivering babies. There are very few areas in medicine where things are happy, and delivering babies is happy, and I love it. I love being able to be a part of families' lives, bringing their child into the world. There's very, very few, there's very little like it, experiences like it. But there was this one case that will stick with me forever. A woman came in for her 40-week ultrasound hoping to hear her baby's heartbeat again, like she heard at her 39-week, and she didn't. And it was devastating for her. She was hoping to deliver she had a C-section with a prior baby, and she was hoping to do a regular delivery without doing a C-section before all of this news came about, but she decided afterward to have the C-section instead. And this was the first C-section that I was able to be the first assist on, which means the primary surgeon, it was Dr. Ellingson-Eatson over at St. Mary's, was right across the operating table from me, and I was able to do all of the first assist things. And I was privileged to be able to do that, but sad that it was under those pretenses. And I remember as we took the poor baby out, hearing Mom, who had an epidural and wasn't feeling any pain, but physical pain, she said to the father of the baby, "You know how scarred I'm going to be from this, right?" As we were sewing up and coming up and out. And she wasn't talking about the physical scars that were going to happen from us suturing the skin, whatever, that doesn't matter. She was talking about the emotional, deep emotional scars that she was going to have from this baby that she had carried for 40 weeks and will not know like she does her other child. And I wanted to be there with her through that, but I'm just a medical student. I don't know her all that well. And when you compare other things in medicine, like bringing a diabetic patient's blood sugar down, or bringing someone's high blood pressure down, or treating their infection, it's so easy when you compare it to the spiritual healing that needs to take place in everyone's life, every sinner's life. Obviously, there's no pill for total depravity, and for that reason, I'm so glad that I can live my life as a beacon to Jesus, pointing to the ways that he's healed me in my sinful state. This may mean that I pray with my patients when the time comes. It may mean simple explanations like, praise God when something goes well, or I'll continue to pray for you when something goes poorly. And it certainly means praying for every patient encounter. There are so few professions where you can care for people in such an intimate light during their most trying times. And I'm proud to be able to care for my patients in this spiritual and personal way, pointing them to deeper healing when the need arises. And yet, even though medicine is an intrinsically spiritual profession, it's also a very unhappy profession. You don't need to go far to ask doctors how unhappy they are. It's incredibly demanding being a doctor. I could talk about the hours that it takes to go through residency and the fellowship and the training, and I could talk about other time constraints that we have, but it means nothing compared to the emotional toll that it runs. It means missing your daughter's soccer game because you had to deliver a baby. It means missing every other holiday because someone needs to take care of the 86-year-old with pneumonia in the hospital. It means staying late in your clinic on date night with your wife because the last patient of the day had horrifying results from her breast biopsy and doesn't have anyone to talk to. So you need to stay. It's not surprising to see why so many doctors are unhappy. And the numbers are even staggering that the suicide rate among doctors is much higher than that of the national average. Among men, it's 2 times more likely. Among women, it's 3 times more likely than the national average. And the reasoning behind this is certainly speculative. I could stand up here talking about why doctors are unhappy, but regardless of the reason, I am convinced that being submerged in an atmosphere of suffering and death is crushing without knowing Jesus and the promise of his return. When I began this talk, I mentioned that I long for the day when I'm out of a job. I love what I do now. I can't see myself doing anything else in the meantime, but I will be rejoicing on the day when doctors don't need to control the damage of the fall and would rather praise Jesus for the perfect world that he made. Thank you. And yeah, it's now my pleasure to introduce Darren Danielson discussing the world of news.